Excellent connection. Waiting to claim more links. Going live.
There's an extra button now. That's the thing. There's an extra button.
Oh, I think we're live now.
We are live now. There's an extra button, but we're live.
Oh yeah, here we are.
That we're up. We're functioning, and here we are, back again. I am back from the dead. Got some surgeries done in the last couple of weeks, so that's why we didn't make an episode. I was in a lot of pain. But let's get to the point. This is Get the Mic, episode 9. I'm the host on your left, Owl.
And I'm the host on the right, Brok.
And welcome, because we're excited to be back.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of a warm-up episode, I would say.
Yeah.
On our way back, because we're about to slide into some heavy myth.
This is probably the calm before the storm.
Right, and this one's pretty light on myth. I don't know, and maybe someone in the chat could help us if anyone's watching. I don't remember quite if this is in the manga. I think this is in the manga. Actually, never mind. I'm pretty sure this is in the manga.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the Dissected, so I'm not sure.
I have seen that series. That's all I'll say on that. Not to say they're bad takes. There's just bad takes all about. For example, I did hear recently from someone in, let's say, the community, not to call out anyone by name, but someone in the community saying that Season 1 is not what Dragon Ball is actually about. And I could not disagree more than... I'm pretty fervently in the Season 1 camp at this point. That's just me. How do you feel, Brok?
Well, it looks like we might have a bit of a technical difficulty. One of our mics is making a loud staticky noise. Ooh, wow, yeah. I can see that on the levels.
That's amazing. Let's see what's going on.
Just a second for technical difficulties. If I've sounded bad, couldn't tell.
Hold on. I think they're both on mine right now. Say something?
Saying something. Oh, that's really high.
That's so strange. We just did a test.
Yeah, we listened back to it too.
I turned you down. Let's get some feedback on that.
All right, how's that audio quality?
And who is it?
Message retracted. I'm going to assume that was shit.
Trying to figure out what it would even be. I don't know. What shall we do?
Well, I got a text saying that it's better, so let's just power on through it then.
It's better. That's not really...
I don't see it jumping up there. It was bouncing around on the bottom end. Now it looks like it doesn't do it. All right, well, let's just move on with it. I think that we sound good.
Just gonna turn these down too. I don't know. Okay, we'll continue. I don't know why. Yeah, I guess you were That's better. Okay.
I think maybe I was just turned up too much on that end.
Thank you, chat, for helping us there. Appreciate it. Kind of was in the middle of a train of thought there. I think I asked you a question.
Something about season 1.
Season 1 camp. I'm definitely in the season 1 camp.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that even coming into this rewatch originally, I didn't think that there was anything that I needed to get out of the first season. I was like, oh yeah, that's all just set up. We get introduced to Gugo and the Dragon Balls, and everybody gets together and does a wish, and we see how that works. We meet Shinra, and then the story can start.
But that's not.
That seems not to be the case now.
I'm definitely changing my tune on that. So yeah, this one is going to be somewhat of a light episode. I don't see us taking 2 hours on it.
No, we're gonna probably just meme a little bit, talk about some of the lighter mythological concepts and some of the imagery.
I do have some things to say.
Yeah, I have a few things. I think you saw from some of the screenshots.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So before we start, it's still not
God
good.
Damn it.
How about now? Is anything better now?
Does anything sound different at all?
I think it does. I think you're really quiet now. Try to say something?
I think both of our levels are much lower now.
No, mine should be about the same.
Mine seems a bit lower. Let me...
Yeah, try now, because I turned you down.
Okay. How am I looking now on the levels?
A little better.
All right.
Okay. We'll see how chat responds. Hopefully.
Way better.
Way better. Okay.
All right.
Thank goodness. Okay. I have no idea what happened there other than we probably should have. We need to invest in better mics, I suppose.
We'll see. I was having this issue on a call before, I think, too. So it might just have something to do with the weirdness of these mics and how long they're plugged in, or if you have them plugged in before you do certain things.
Weird. Anyways, okay. So let's just preface again. Welcome to Get the Mic, episode 9. This is the Boss Rabbit's special technique. And like we've been saying, on and off, we've had some technical difficulties, but I just want to reiterate, this episode is going to be light, but it does have some mythological significance, so we are going to get into it. Addendum-wise, is there anything we need to mention from last episode?
I don't really remember much from the last episode that I wanted to say outside of what we went over. I think it's been a little over a week now, so anything I thought of, I guess it wasn't important enough to write down.
Little over a week, yeah. No, I don't. I think we covered a lot of what was in the last one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was, 2.5 hours?
Yeah, and it was fun, too. I had fun doing that one. But in our last one, right, really quickly, we had just come from the Ox King's Mountain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Dragon Crew, Dragon Team, whatever you want to call them, are going to get the last Dragon Ball. Well, I only need one left.
In the car given to them by the Ox King that also can fly, that we saw at the end of the last episode.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see how that turns out.
And they're being pursued by Yamcha because he wants to follow them to the last Dragon Ball and just piggyback on their success.
Yeah, what a noble cause. But let's go ahead and start. So, one Dragon Ball left. We started with this one because they are driving down some type of path. And I want to actually briefly mention the mushrooms returning.
Oh, yeah.
So, throughout this and pretty much the last part of this arc, we're going to see a lot of mushrooms.
just mushrooms everywhere. Mushroom stone formations, actual mushrooms, eating mushrooms.
Mm-hmm. And so just keep that in the back of your minds while you listen to this. So we go on and Oolong hasn't been here.
Right.
Significantly. Oolong's been and heard about other places. Right.
Right. He had heard about Fire Mountain. He had his opinions about it, obviously. But they ask him about this place as the episode opens, and his response is, "Don't ask me. This is the first time I've been out here." He doesn't even know anything about this terrain that they're entering into.
Right. And significantly as well, you can see that in the background what we're about to see in the next slide as well. I do think it's important to mention that it seems they've been traveling for a while.
Right, it was a long distance mentioned in the last episode that they had a long journey to the west that they needed to make.
Mm-hmm.
And this is along their way.
Right. And so they continue in that way. But an error has occurred yet again. They have not properly maintained the societal hierarchy that they should. And by continuing in that path, well, they run out of gas, let's say.
Of course. And so here they are in a similar situation to where they were in the boat out in the water. Now they are stranded here in the mushrooms when the mode of transportation that they got from the societal father no longer is carrying them along.
Well, it can be refueled, and that's what we're going to get
Of course, right.
So they need to make a detour.
They can't rely on it right now, so they need to refuel it.
Mm-hmm. And so they must go where?
Into town.
Into society, right?
Into society.
Yeah. And so they don't yet, because before that happens, we get some insight into Yamcha. And nailing down Yamcha's mythological significance, I think, is important. I don't know if we've been able to come up with a specific categorization of him. He is the potential, but that's the thing, that the potential flawed masculine
It's
is
like
not
specific.
It's not specific enough.
Yeah.
It's not specific enough though. Because Goku's still developing. You could say the same thing about Goku.
Right, but Yamcha's just much further behind.
Yeah. But I do think it's important that we find a category for Yamcha to fall into. It's almost because, and it's important too that he's older than Goku. It's almost that he is the unrealized masculine due to the lack of
moral fortitude, or maybe the lack of embodiment of
I was going to say,
or sort of a lack of integration of the conscience into embodiment.
A lack of the integration of the female.
That too.
That's mostly it, I think.
Well, the feminine aspect of his consciousness, right?
Right. Well, I just wanted to, I think unrealized is better than potential.
Yeah, I mean, potential is more sort of
because not saying
conceptual.
Yamcha's already, I'm not saying Yamcha's a loser or anything. But
no, he has latent potential, obviously, right? We're on our rewatch of Z, and he's up in Corin's tower, so he obviously has potential.
Obviously.
But,
so we will get to Z, for anyone wondering if we're ever going to get to Z. We will eventually.
Of course. Because Z is part of the original Dragon Ball story.
But to go back to this, I do think it's important to mention that Yamcha doesn't want to lose sight of them. Sight being not only physically seeing them, but knowing what path to be on.
Right, if he loses sight of them, he won't be on the path because he doesn't know
He's
it.
kind of mooching.
He's mooching the information.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's part of that flawed, unrealized masculine. But the thing is, he really is, especially in this arc, kind of the rogue with the heart of gold archetype.
Mm-hmm.
Because he, unlike some of the other more sinister characters we'll see later on.
We'll be seeing in the next episode.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. They embody malevolence much more than Yamcha. Yamcha's mostly harmless.
Right. Yamcha's encounter with Goku sort of has him laying down that malevolence quite a bit, and you see that with how little he fights with a sword after his first encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the lethality of the other opponents, they don't understand the context of their encounter with Goku and his power pole, the sort of blunted weapon that Goku can use to fight, but not in the way that, characters are using lethal means. He uses a blunted weapon to disarm or disable opponents. So characters who can internalize the moral character that Goku represents then.
Even if they can't articulate it, which is specifically Yamcha here, doesn't say, I'm getting rid of my sword because now I'm no longer going to be as malicious in my endeavors.
Right, the sword more exists on this level as a part of Yamcha. And so leaving the sword behind is that piece of Yamcha that he's not leaning on anymore.
Mm-hmm. And so, speaking of leaning on, he is still leaning on...
Of course.
And that's what makes Yamcha's character so interesting, because he takes a very large role in this series in Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm.
He's like third main character. Well, maybe not third. Fourth.
Well, I think I would like to get more into that further into this episode too, because I have some thoughts just about this dynamic with you say third, right? Because we're talking about Goku, Bluma, and Yamcha. There's this kind of trinity of characters that I think is more
persistent
linked
throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because, let's say, in a later arc where one main character is not around,
mm-hmm.
one future main character is not around, let's say, and it is really that trinity is back, in a sense. But yeah, I mean, he has huge staying power in this series, in Dragon Ball specifically.
Oh, for sure.
So, chasing after him, and then we get this. So did you wanted to say something, I imagine?
Nothing major, just that I thought it was funny that, we're seeing Yamcha, who's embarrassed that he was saying that he found yes, he does find Yamcha's face pretty, but he also finds Bulma's face pretty. And so his embarrassment, and his shyness kind of coming back up here, and, that's what Bulma and Chi-Chi pointed out about him, like, oh, he's so shy, like they're these younger feminine characters attracted to this more shy, boyish character that still remains in Yamcha.
Well, I think it's, one thing that I want to bring up about this is, let's say an old infant is an unattractive thing. I think Dr. Peterson said that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you're supposed to find this amusing or cute, right? Like I pity this when I see
it
this.
Is. I find it funny because it's
funny,
like,
right?
It is it's funny to laugh at how a character behaves, because like in this situation he's embarrassed with himself. He's embarrassed with the feminine aspect of himself that he has sort of separated and is not truly integrated into himself. So it's like so him showing embarrassment to that is showing a weakness sort of in his character, like, he can't own up to the things that he's feeling.
Yes.
And so,
and it is.
It's funny in that way because it's an expression of that happening right here in what seems like a really quick one-off, beat. Even here, we can see this representing sort of the moral weakness or the character weakness in Yamcha.
Because guess who doesn't do stuff like this? Goku.
Of course.
Goku's not like, Oh no, I'm shy now. It worked. My plan worked. So anyway, sorry. Right. So back to Yamcha. I think that it is supposed to be pitiable. And you're supposed to root for him to get over it. It's not something you're supposed to find endearing and you should keep around, which is something that I want to particularly mention about, let's say, the messaging that you are already great or you're already special. You shouldn't change who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like stuff like that I'm kind of against because it's antithetical to stories like this, where even something as small as this, you wouldn't think this joking thing, because it doesn't ever happen after season 1. Mm-hmm. Well, Yamcha is around women like that. I guess a little.
Yeah,
but
it's
more instances.
It's more of a sort of one-off beat for him, and it's not
like
focal,
a character-defining thing,
right?
But point being, it's the nature of being able to identify flaws and confront them, and we're gonna see that in the next couple episodes out of Yamcha.
Oh, for sure.
The boss rabbit special technique. Now, I think it's significant to mention, why are we on the moon?
Oh, it's just they show cool stuff on these title screens.
Cool.
Just neat landscapes that they make throughout the series. They put them there in the background. So this one, we're treated to a cool picture of the moon.
Yep, just a moon, random moon. Here we go. Got it. I do think that we should, I guess, mention the English title, which is, what is it? I need to look it up. Hold on.
I'm not sure. I think it was like the Boss Rabbit's Magic Trick or something like that.
What am I doing? I'm not playing Bannerlord. What am I doing?
So, welcome to our next stream where Owl is going to stream some Bannerlord.
It is called The Boss Rabbit's Magic Touch.
Magic Touch. Yeah, that's what it is.
So I do think that's a little bit significant because it gives more away. It gives more away than the original translation. And that actually is going to be the crux of the mythological analysis. For that character in particular is his ability. That's a character defining thing.
Well, classifying it also as a magic thing as well.
Right. Where special technique doesn't necessarily mean that.
Right. There's a different connotation.
Yeah. Just want to mention those couple things and we can move on. So I'll let you mention this part.
I just got a pair of slides here that I thought were funny. So they're rolling into town, and Bulma's like, "Oh, there is a town out here. We got lucky." And she's sitting here looking out the window as they roll in, or I say out the window, out the top of the hover car. It's pretty great. Got another panel here of Bulma just not doing anything. She's just sitting there while people are bringing her somewhere. This time it's Oolong driving again. And the immediate reaction that we get from the townsfolk whenever they arrive is this. So we know something's amiss right away, though we don't know what.
Right. People immediately begin cowering in fear, I would say. And we'll get to that. Did we talk about the significance of the costume?
I think we touched on it a little bit. We pointed out the sexualization of it, but also the pet aspect of it, sort of like a your entertainment sort of thing with the bunny ears. But I don't know if we got too deep into it.
Okay, well, this is kind of an on-the-fly addendum because I do want to say
I think this is a good time to touch on it.
It's of particular interest that rabbits are considered virile creatures, right? And in particular for Bluma, right, that aspect of her is what is being put on display additionally with the costume. Just to mention that.
The virile, sort of like the I guess virile is a good way of putting it. I'm trying to think of another way to put it, but it's like she's being put on display as this budding, available, like young woman, right?
Exactly. And she's been in this costume for quite a few episodes.
She's just wearing it now.
Yeah. But because, and I think this is, well, we'll get into it. Hold on.
Yeah,
I don't want to get too far ahead.
I think it matters.
Because we will talk about the costume more as we go on. So here's Bluma. They stop to get gas. And yeah, everyone seems a little strange. What would you say, Brok?
Everyone seems completely terrified and confused, which I think with the right context makes perfect sense here. Anytime they see Bluma specifically, they are just frightened and
Are we just calling
bewildered.
her Bluma now?
Yep, she's
Okay.
Bloomer.
She's Bloomer.
So yeah, everyone is just bewildered at the sight of her, which you would expect, but you wouldn't expect people to be terrified.
Bewildered at the sight.
And I just thought this was a good frame of that.
Okay, fair enough. I don't think there's much else for this other than where Bluma's going. Where is she going?
Well, from here, she's going to...
What does she say she's going to do, let's say?
She needs to go shopping.
Right. She wants out of these clothes. So even though we have established what these clothes mean for the most part through the last episode and a little bit of analysis this episode. So she wants out of them, obviously, because it is let's say, a hindrance to her dignity.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
And so that's the first thing she's thinking of.
Well, specifically, the first thing she's thinking of is she goes to buy some capsules.
That's right.
So, if you want to consider what the capsules really mean to Bulma, it would make sense that she's going to get those before she even gets the clothes.
True. I hadn't thought of that. I didn't rewatch this episode.
And considering that we're in society now and we're refueling, this is a way for Bulma also to sort of refuel on that thing by integrating into society.
Right. Because her, let's say, ancestral power is that technological that can be adopted and outside of family lineage, which I think it's a very female-oriented mind. It's a very female-oriented frame because
it's the creative nature of it. Yeah.
It's the creative nature of it. Because think back, like, okay, fruit, the establishment of those rules, like which fruit to keep. That knowledge gets passed through society, right? And that's kind of what they would rely on. Let's say.
Right. The capsules representing the ideas of things that can. You know, a house coming out of a capsule is like all that the knowledge of a house encapsulates, right? So having that as something that Bulma has inherited from her family that she can call at will.
Oh, is that so? Chris Sombra says Bluma was the one who neglected to fill up on gas at the previous town because she said they were close to the next Dragon Ball. Do you remember that at the beginning?
No, I don't. I don't remember her saying they're close, but they do point out whenever they're running out that Oolong calls her out on it. He's like, you didn't fill up again or something along those lines.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I should have rewatched this one. I have my basic mythological analysis, but I didn't remember that part. That's pretty important to mention.
Yeah, I guess it is.
Chris Sombra.
Especially given, we see that Oolong can't function as gas.
Oolong
For
can't
these
function
modes.
as gas, exactly. Well, he does not provide as such.
As such.
He does not provide as such. And so, right, and I would say that that's one of Bluma's flaws there, is thinking that she'll be able to just skate on through.
Well, yeah, it's like, she was given this way of following the path by the societal masculine figure, and then she just would think that's enough and that she could just take it to get wherever she wanted. And then again, she neglected to do the sort of upkeep, the same sort of upkeep that Goku has to do on himself when he eats so much, that sort of upkeep to keep that thing going for her.
Well, right, and it appears that she's not treating Oolong any differently after she should have learned her lesson in the last episode.
Right, and we're going to see how Oolong feels about that.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
Right, I think that's about 2 frames. 1 or 2 frames.
Yeah, we're going to get there. But, no, I think that is important. Because let's say she was nice to Oolong and the tank was full, that might mean something different. And I don't mean nice. Let me take that back. I don't mean nice. If she wasn't engaging in the toxic symbiotic relationship that a simp and a thought will interface on, then perhaps Oolong could function as gas one day.
Right, yeah. At that point.
But let's go on. No need to pay, says the clerk.
Right, so as she goes away, the others tell him that she'll be back soon with the money to pay him as he finishes up pumping, and he says there's no need to pay. We don't want any trouble. And of course, as a viewer, you don't really know what's going on here, but obviously he is frightened by something to do with her. Now she's off, and she's picking up her capsules, and I think that's here.
Right, but I do want to mention the fear. The fear is significant. This is we've seen fear like this before, in a way. We've seen how afraid the villagers were of Oolong, if you remember. Mm-hmm. Right. I only want to point out the fear to necessitate the conversation later about how we are in a society in this episode.
Well, we definitely live in a society.
We definitely live in a society.
Yeah, well, I think that it's important also to consider the context of Oolong holding that village hostage, sort of, in a sense.
And also considering what society fears, and we're going to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And for just context-wise, Goku and Oolong stay with the car.
Right. Bulma just marches off to get her things done. Doesn't even pay attention to this guy or pay him. She's just like, fill it up. Okay, bye.
But I think it's important to note why she thinks she's getting this treatment. She thinks, oh wait, no, this is the capsules, right?
Oh, well, I'm glad you pointed that out, Chris Ombra, because it looks like that frame's not there, unless it's after this one for some reason. But I don't think no.
See, that's why, because when I was putting the
he knew.
Yeah. Well, when I was putting this together, or when I was downloading this and looking through, I saw this and I was like, oh, this is a reaction from the gas. It wasn't. But I think she does say something about it.
Yeah, she says this about the capsule. So she goes into the capsule shop and looks at she's looking through a magazine or a sort of a catalog of what they have, and she's like, you don't have any good capsules. Well, I guess I'll take these 5. And so, I think that's important just because it's like, this isn't as good as the capsules that she gets from her own sort of inheritance from her
own
ancestry,
lineage,
or from her lineage.
This is plebeian capsules,
or the capsule from her family versus the capsule that she can get from society. And so she needs a capsule. Period. Like, she recognizes that she's going to need capsules no matter what.
Well, it's also to say the ancestral paternal spirit is superior to the societal paternal spirit, which is the case. Let's say.
Right. So she gets them anyway because obviously she needs them to empower herself.
But I also want to mention that she gets them for free.
She gets them for free because they fear her outfit, and she, of course, interprets that as, well, everybody sees how beautiful I am.
You got unplugged, it says.
Okay.
Say something?
Am I plugged in?
Yeah.
Whoa, look at my levels.
What is happening? Go.
Am I dank?
Keep talking.
Okay, I'm talking. I'm just saying some words.
I think you're all right.
Words coming out of my mouth.
We'll hear from the chat and I think I've done a better job, chat. Tell me if you agree or not, on staying on top of paying attention to you.
Thankfully,
because this one's been more than any. Sorry, these microphones are not as good as I thought.
I don't know what's going on.
They just like randomly blast out. Yeah, it's no good. Anyways, so she gets them for free. Go on with your thought there.
She gets them for free because she thinks that is the reaction they have to her beauty, which is pretty hilarious given the context of what her outfit is. She thinks that it is that people view her as beautiful and that they are just so moved by that in her naivety. And in reality, she is sort of this display of the virile young female form.
She like other thoughts. She thinks that that's okay and will get her anything she wants.
Right. She thinks that that is a representation of her beauty and that her beauty is what's getting her what she wants. But of course, that is not the case whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Her lack of awareness. Her eyes may be open, but they're not really open. Not in this.
Her eyes are closed.
Her eyes are closed.
They're open, but they're not actually because they're closed.
So then she does do the second most important thing to her, which is to get out of these clothes, which is why I thought it was next, because I thought she was talking to the gas station attendant.
So she goes and tries on some clothes, and she's not exactly happy with them, but she's like, well, it's better than this. And she says, I guess I'll take them. And she looks in the mirror and looks up and realizes, oh, yeah, I forgot that I even had these bunny ears on.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a weird thing to forget, right?
It does. But it's become part and parcel of her being for the past couple of episodes, let's say. Are you okay?
Yeah, I was just clearing my throat.
Okay. All right. But right, the clothes are, I think it's important to note the clothes that she changes into are, let's say, not the most conservative.
Right. It's still sort of this skimpy version of what people are wearing around here.
Skimpier, right?
Skimpier.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not skimpy compared to what she was wearing, but I mean, at least she's putting something else on.
Right. And the, let's say the virile nature of the bunny ears has to be the last thing to go, particularly. So I don't think it's necessarily an accident that that's what she forgot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think the bunny ears being like used to denote a role that she's playing, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And so even
We did talk
sort of
about the costume.
well, I think it's important because
it's been in so
it's
many
sort of like
episodes
you
we've
can
talked
you can
about it.
change the clothes you're wearing, but you do need to take off the bunny ears. You know, eventually you'll have to.
Right.
And of course, we see that when she takes the bunny ears off.
We see lots of humor in this episode. Well deserved. We needed some. The last episode was very grandiose, let's say.
Yeah, that was a deep dive.
And so, right, they're upset because why, Brock? Tell us why.
They're upset because they feel like they've been taken advantage of by Bulma's display. And that when it's revealed to them that she is not actually the person that she has portrayed herself to be and is just taking what she can, she is reviled by society. That's sort of what I interpret from it.
Well, it's interesting because we need to get into the rabbits. So the rabbits seem to be some type of gang. We don't know who they are yet. But they seem to be terrorizing the town. Obviously, these people are in terror, right? Bluma coming here wearing this outward representation of femininity, right? That is perceived, let's say, differently by these townsfolk to be part of that gang of terror. Now, I'm trying to puzzle out why it is. Well, we'll get into it. We're going to get into it in the next couple of slides. We'll talk about it a little bit. Hopefully, we can puzzle out together a little bit more on the particulars. But I did want to mention that because he mentions the rabbits in the store, right?
I don't remember.
I think he does. And she's
Okay.
like, "What are they?" Right? She doesn't know. And so here they are.
So we finally see why everyone is acting so terrified, and it's that there is a gang of thugs with rabbit ears.
Okay, so this is... I'm going to let you go ahead first, because I just fully pieced together mine, but I also have to use the bathroom real quick, so...
Well, I haven't fully pieced mine together, so I guess I'll try. So we have a society that has been bullied and taken advantage of by sort of these emissaries of a rabbit. Well, we'll see that they're ultimately representing a rabbit leader or a rabbit idea. And so Bulma coming in wearing that and also being an image of that virility, I think it's sort of an interplay of the young versus the old, sort of the challenge to the structure of society itself. And Bulma wearing this sort of representation of young virile aspects, and coming in here and people being automatically afraid of her, I think is just an interplay of that. She is embodying that same sort of idea in her youth and in challenging, well, the way that she's living is challenging those sort of conservative societal ideals of propriety.
There are a couple things I want to talk about particularly, and this is kind of the crux of my mythological analysis for the episode.
All right.
I would say. Because... And we've been saying all along that this episode is lots of fun, and that's true. And I think Toriyama had fun writing it, particularly because what he can do in this instance is subvert symbology and use symbology with the rabbit ears with Bluma and use different symbology here. So the different symbology here, and I'm glad you mentioned bullying earlier. Why is it a rabbit? Rabbits are prey, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the pathological... Let's see, the pathology that comes about when those who are preyed upon, let's say, gain undue power. these guys don't deserve what they're getting, right, in this instance. Now, before, and in particular, the reason, the whole crux of the episode in the beginning is that these, let's say, townsfolk are running away from Bluma because she's representative of this idea that she's representative of the idea to them that prey, or let's say the powerless, the oppressed, right, when given undue power, become bullies themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's the significance of why they're rabbits, and
well, I think that
how
also
it goes along with.
That's also representative of Bulma's character right now in her relationship with Oolong.
Right, and that's a lot of what we're going back to in this season. But go on with that.
Well, I think, you can extract that out also and say you can take, there are ideas that the characters are embodying. And sometimes it's like, let's take those ideas and scale them out. Or let's make a higher resolution version of that idea. And in this case, that higher resolution idea would be like, here's a society operating on the same ideals that Bulma is operating on, right? And it's like this, in this society of people, everyone is bullied by the bunny.
Well, and it's also it's also an example of the different values that are agreed upon in societies. Because in the previous episodes, we've seen Bluma be humiliated by what she was wearing, right? And normally people see that and it's not something threatening. But in this society, their experiences have dictated as such to act as they do in fear. And these apples taste like crap is just like the cherry on top, that they are also bad people, because that's the idea. If you are nothing but a vessel of power, it'll corrupt you.
They are basically not only taking advantage of the people, but not even appreciating that which they're taking from them. So they're just denigrating things.
And they're armed, too. They're armed.
Right, well, they're armed with lethal means.
But anyone can be armed with lethal means. It doesn't mean they're malevolent. That's the thing, because they are still bunnies, and we're going to see that in a minute. So real quick before we move on, what do you think about what I was saying? Do you agree or disagree?
I do. I think that ties into what I was saying right before you came back, too, because there's this interplay of sort of the young and dangerous, sort of oppressed ideas that rise up through the, through the creative, how do I want to put it? The virile bunny, I feel, is almost representing the creative ideas that come from that younger, more dangerous generation in society, right? Challenging. And in this case, those ideas are taking advantage of and bullying the people that they come into contact with, right?
I mean, do you want to mention also their armbands?
So they have white armbands.
I mean, who else? What imagery is that invoking?
Well, I mean, it's a sort of fascistic type of imagery.
Right. Those who are oppressed, that gain power unduly, become fascists, let's say.
Right.
And so I think that's what's happening in this episode. And that's why I didn't think, oh, man, this episode isn't even
It is a
worth
good way
doing.
for Toriyama to tie the way that Bulma is being in her character to this, right?
Yes.
And that's what I think is happening. He's taking that idea to a higher resolution and saying, like, well, this is the logical consequence if you think this is being good in character, right?
And so let's continue. So then we get a good picture of the armband.
They're just dicks.
They're just bullying about. So they see Bluma, and she's no longer in her rabbit outfit, obviously. And they want to check her out. Is there any particular reason this slide?
I thought it was interesting, and this is going to tie back in to the boss rabbit, but I think it's interesting that the first thing they do whenever they see the crew is they want to immediately approach Bluma. And
do you want to also mention their faux Ox King goggles?
Well, if they were to represent a similar sort of thing to the Ox King, it would be that they are sort of the gaze of that I would say the gaze of the embodiment of that ideological space in power through victimhood. And so that gaze, meaning that they are going to represent a discernment towards the other characters, I would say, as far as they relate to those ideas. Sort of, and the pressure of society on that character too.
Right. I would note though that the reason I called them faux Ox King goggles is because they're much shorter in length and focal length.
Right.
They're much shorter sighted.
Well, I would say that inherently is going to be shorter sighted.
Right. Well, inherently the idea, right, that you can view things through an oppressive lens. I don't know about that, Chris Sombra. I don't know if the state really has a gender. Let's say the state. But right, it's shorter sight. It's very much, let's say, more short-sighted than society, the paternal society, the ancestral, let's say, mode of being society has adopted or has embodied throughout time. And this is the adoption of, let's say, because you were talking about new ideas coming through, a new society where the oppressed rule, let's say.
Right, and I guess it's a good time to point out, like, there's an association of, like, fascism being a paternal right-leaning concept and not associated with the left or maternal concepts, and I don't think that's... Well, I think that's a bit of a misnomer, and we've seen fascistic tendencies represented through the maternal appeals to society. I think that there are a lot of fascistic aspects of, like, let's say, communism. It's just the representation of it appeals to a different thing. Yeah. But so, that association with the fascistic appearance of these characters.
Mm-hmm. And so they go and talk to Bluma, and they immediately point their gun. So
yeah,
I want to point out an interpretation from Dr. Peterson about, in particular, a line from the Bible. I believe it's the meek shall inherit the earth, and he doesn't like that phrase. He thinks it should be more accurately articulated as those who have swords and know how to use them but keep them sheathed shall inherit the world.
Right, that's closer to the original text than sort of the more commonly understood the meek shall inherit the earth.
And I want to point that out because this is the exact opposite embodiment of that idea. However, we've already seen someone who is very at odds to even draw his weapon in the first place. It's kind of a last resort. His name could be Goku. Might be Goku. Just Goku. Might. Right. So, here we see the automatic unsheathing. And we didn't even see Yamcha do that, did we? Yeah, Yamcha actually came out unsheathed,
I think he just came out like that, just with a thread as well.
Yeah.
Well, that goes well for him, obviously.
They are bunnies. They are prey.
For Goku?
Well, and that's the thing. Upon meeting they don't stand a chance against someone who has what Goku has, let's say. Truth, justice, and the American way.
Yeah. They don't have the internal consistency in character that Goku does. And so the ideas they represent clearly cannot stand up to him.
Right. And Goku's armed with a lot of knowledge from the last couple of episodes additionally that allow him to easily deal with these problems. If this was like the second episode, this might be a little bit different. Might pan out a little different if Goku was going against, let's say, a new societal order that was coming about. Mm-hmm. But in this instance...
Yeah, it's kind of pointing out that this is not... I mean, that you can just approach people who represent this with the sort of forthright nature that Goku has. And that alone will show their insufficiencies.
Right. They're not that threatening.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a point of what I put in the description about I think I put false malevolence. And this is their interface with false malevolence. And it's important to mention that false malevolence precedes malevolence in a lot of stories. And we'll get to that a little bit later once we talk about Le Boss Rabbit.
The boss.
But yeah, he shows them for what they are, which they are prey. And they have always been prey, let's say. His eyes have been open. Ladies and gentlemen, if your eyes have been open...
Goku
Smash
used
the
his
like
pole
button.
and opened his eyes.
Yeah.
He basically just smacks him in the ass with a power pole. And that's his one-hit KO. That's that.
But, I mean, if, let's say, you were under sway of an ideology similar to that, wouldn't the ancestral knowledge of... let's say that the mode of being that could possibly be might blow your mind.
Oh yeah,
which is why his eyes are open.
that's
the idea. It's specifically.
I mean,
why.
getting hit in the ass by the power pole is basically that. It's the rude awakening and the crippling experience.
But you have to burn away that dead wood, like you were talking about the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Right, it's like, get the hell up, guys. There's things to be done, right?
Yeah.
So, he's awake for a minute. And then we cut back to Yamcha. And I think...
just a quick intercut to Yamcha. He's still here. He's just watching them fight, not helping out. Just like, yep, they'll just get through all of these morons, and then I can get my Dragon Ball. And, of course, he recognizes these guys for what they are in this scene. Mm-hmm. He knows they can't stand up to Goku.
He knows that they're false malevolence, let's say, because he's more acquainted, let's say.
Right, well, he's laid down his lethal weapon already.
Right. He was already more threatening than they were.
And that's true.
Right. He was more of an embodiment of malevolence than they could be, and so he can easily see them. It's like the coachman seeing right through Honest John and the cat in Pinocchio.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, well, he sees that they're wielding a malevolence that they haven't earned.
And that's what Yamcha sees here. Mm-hmm. He knows. Which we will see an even better example of later that I can't wait to mention where we're going to get there. I don't even know if Brok knows what
I probably don't.
Talking about. But we do cut to Yamcha. I don't think Yamcha could actually help at this point, because of he hasn't cleaned up his room enough yet to be able to confront what Bloomer represents.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think we're going to see an aspect of that in this episode, though.
Well, definitely. It's a Yamcha episode.
Even though he just stands around for most of the episode.
He grows, though.
He does see. Well, it's funny because, this is what a lot of people would consider, like, the one filler episode in Season 1, really. And it's not, because we see character development for multiple characters here.
Yeah, and Toriyama ascribing meaning to Bluma's actions and character. Like, how is that filler?
Yeah, it's like we're taking this character and making them I mean, it's basically society seeing Bulma for who she is and confronting that for her. And that's, partially why these
and extending the idea
henchmen have goggles,
extending the idea of that entitlement to its nth degree.
Right. And we're approaching that, and we're having these characters grow and overcome these boundaries for their characters in the most abstract and like extreme versions of that, right? So it's extremely important. This feels like a really important episode, even though it may not have the same level of like, Mount Doom significance, let's say, of the last episodes. But
right, and we're gonna have peaks and valleys, everyone. Just so we know, we might have to put 2 episodes together. Like, I don't know how long I'm gonna be able to talk about Ninja Murasaki. So,
oh yeah,
we'll have some peaks and valleys. Don't worry, but our high points should be pretty good, especially because like I feel like we really rocked it on the last episode.
Yeah, I think so. But
let's move on. So they call up the boss.
Right, they get smacked down. And the first thing they do is go, well, you're in trouble now. And then they call the boss.
My dad can beat your dad.
It's like, oh wait, we're not just unearned malevolence. There is real malevolence. I'm going to get it for you.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tell he's not happy to do this.
Well, he's not the only one that's not happy about this.
Yeah, he seemed... And this also intonates the... let's say, fascistic hierarchy, right? Because there's one boss.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone answers to this boss. So he seems to run the town. State, fascism. There you go. So apparently the boss rabbit is going to come through and take care of this. And everyone's freaking out.
Yeah, you can see everyone's just sprinting. And this guy's like, you have no idea what you've done. Just thought it was a good panel to show.
It's very dire situation.
How bullied and how dominated the society is by this boss rabbit.
Yeah, how cowed they are from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When really, well, we'll get to it.
When really this.
When really this. He'll turn you into a carrot and eat you.
So this panel is a little confusing, but I kind of like this reaction. So this is the henchmen talking, and they're being threatening and kind of rambling on towards Goku and friends. And they're like, when he gets here, he'll turn you into carrot and eat you. And Yamcha and Poir are like, what?
What do you say to that, right?
They're just like, okay. But this jogs Yamcha's memory a little bit here. And so he starts thinking about, that sounds a little bit familiar. I feel like I've heard of something like that.
Do we have it?
Yeah, he gets to that.
Well, after this, my boy's back. He has a line finally.
So, of course, Oolong's like, we better get out of here. That sounds scary.
Of course.
And Goku says, there's no reason to run away. We didn't do anything bad.
Which is just the right mode of being. If you don't, let's say, act in a way that makes you not tell the truth about how you act, then you don't have to ever worry about how you act.
And you don't need to run away because you will be able to face the unfair challenges that come towards you, right?
Well, let's say it's like in a job. If you act in a forthright way and try your best at things, and you, let's say, in this climate, you CYA, you'll be fine.
Sure.
You're almost untouchable.
Well, you don't need to run away from the confrontations because you can let people make fools of themselves.
You can say, here it is, here, and here, this, and this. Right. As long as you can back it up.
And of course, Goku here sees that they're not doing anything that's not on the up and up. Why? And he can't comprehend that in a situation like this, you would want to run away from what's going on. So whenever Oolong wants to run away, he's like, wait, we didn't do anything wrong, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, he doesn't even think about being afraid of this. That's how
Well, I think it's even
below what he represents this is.
It's even a little more universal, because it's almost like if you don't do something that you know is wrong by your own moral admission, then no one else can tell you that what you've done is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to come to that.
Well, you have to embody it.
Yeah. And of course,
Goku being
my
the
boy,
embodiment.
here he is, the one and only. Trying to make sure your microphone doesn't get messed up again. All right. Here he is.
And so he arrives on the scene. Your boy, with that drip. Just look at him.
Look at this. Look at this. Toriyama had a blast. He was like, I'll make a rabbit car.
This car is incredible.
This car is one of a kind. The rear view mirrors are on the door.
I love the tires. I love the ears. It's pretty great.
It's pretty amazing, right? But specifically, I think all of these signs say rabbit, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably.
But yeah, we have the embodiment of, let's say, false malevolence. Anything you want to say about his design before I do?
I love the sphere behind his head. I mean, it implies this. It's great. I didn't even think about it until now, but the halo behind the head implies sort of this spiritual authority almost. But having it as a pink one, these two shades of pink, it's almost like a spiritual feminine authority that I think is being represented as like ultimately what Bulma is representing, but wielding in a way, let's say, with her relationship with Oolong in a way that is untoward and unearned. But I just love the rabbit with the halo. That's what it skews towards whenever I make that association.
It's interesting that you say that.
Because I the more I think about this city, town, village, whatever we want to call it, this society that they're in, the more I think of it as this sort of microcosm of Bulma and her morality.
It has to be. That's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Right. But we do see, so let's say, and it is a very feminine car.
Oh yeah.
It's a very feminine character.
That not even needing to be said. I mean, just look at it.
And look at the shades too.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
If we're going to associate that in the same way that we did with Roshi, there's sort of a willful blindness in this, in what it is a guiding force.
There is a willful blindness. There is a willful blindness. And once we see the special technique, I thought we were going to talk about it a couple slides ago, but I guess we didn't actually have the Yamcha recollection. Maybe we will still.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It happens at a very inopportune time.
Oh, God. Okay. One more thing I do want to mention is the cowl is just, let's say, false malevolence at its peak. It is literally designed to make this character look bigger and more intimidating.
Yeah, that too. It's it's kind of if you look at it that way, it definitely reminds me of a dinosaur, which I'm sure you know the name of.
Dilophosaurus didn't actually have those, though.
But it was in the Jurassic Park. That means it was right? That's what they really look like.
So, for anyone that didn't know, the host on your left is a very big paleontological fan. Dilophosaurus, the spitter from Jurassic Park, did not have those frills. But there are many animals that puff up like these kinds of things that are not actually... most of the time the intimidation is their only strength.
Well, it's
Like
also
butterflies?
funny to see it on a rabbit.
Yeah. Well, it needs to be on a rabbit because a rabbit's not intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say this is the most intimidating thing, but gotta do it where you can. So the cow functions in multiple ways. I think you're right about the let's say the feminine aspect of Bluma.
I think that's a part of it. I think that may have been more of a subconscious sort of inclination.
That may be something deeper
Yeah.
you can dive into if you want to keep thinking about it.
It'll be on my mind. I don't know if I have much more for it, though. Oh, of course, Oolong seeing this. Even Oolong says, that looks pretty weak to me. I can't believe I was actually scared.
Right. Even with the cow.
So now that the
false malevolence
well,
is
he's
on
seeing
display.
it for what it is now. Right? He's seeing an embodiment of it rather than just sort of the representation in action. This is an actual embodiment of that thing. And Oolong seeing it now is just like, I can't believe I was scared. So I think I didn't really have this connection in mind when I grabbed this frame, but I think that this is kind of important for the development of the relationship between Bulma and Oolong, because even still, I mean, Oolong is here as sort of a victim of Bulma's manipulation of him and his vulnerability. So this is a big moment for Oolong, even though it's not given much pomp and circumstance. I think it is a big moment for Oolong, seeing it and not being scared of it.
Okay. I might address that later.
Okay.
More of what I mean is just not that I disagree or anything, but I think it's significant that his reaction changes.
Oh, it does. I mean, but I think that seeing it in its representation, just sort of in its latent state, I guess I could clarify.
Okay.
Just as it appears, and
Here.
of course the actions of it are more terrifying than what it is, right?
Let's go. So, the boss rabbit approaches Bluma.
So, just like his henchman, immediately just beelines to Bluma, even though what they told him was, there's a really strong guy here.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't go for the guy. He just beelines
Because
to
it's about
Bluma
Bluma.
again, right?
Because it's about Bluma.
And this handshake is important. I think the reason that this needs to be a handshake is this is Bulma going into a contract with the future, right? The future being the bigger hierarchy that she will be approaching as she's maturing.
If she goes down this is the
Exactly.
last test of thoughtery.
Mm-hmm. It's
Like
okay.
you want to ride this victim train along and cry because you lost your capsules and make Oolong pay for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see where it goes. And so,
And this is why it's terrifying.
let's
then.
make that right. Let's make that deal. And the deal is made.
And the deal is made now as Yamcha is realizing what the deal is. And so Yamcha, watching this from the sidelines, remembers now who he is. And he calls out, "Don't touch him!" But Bulma doesn't hear him. And so Bulma slaps his hand away and rejects.
But in doing so,
But in doing so, just by coming into contact with him, it's already too late for her. And she is transformed into a carrot.
okay. So, what are your thoughts on this?
So Bulma, in coming into contact, and I guess coming into contact is a good way of putting it. Coming into contact with this is molded into what that idea will turn her into ultimately, which is just something to be consumed.
Right. Which we've seen repeatedly happen with starlets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say. Like Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears. Name another one quick.
Anybody on a Disney show ever? Anyone who worked
What's
with...
her name? Miley Cyrus? What's that actress name?
There's a lot of them. Miley Cyrus is one of them. Or anyone who worked for Dan Getting the Van Schneider.
Right. You see a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're willing to make that contract, then you that's it. You'll be consumed.
Right. You are fuel for somebody else now.
But I think it's significant as well to say why Boss Rabbit has this power.
I think Boss Rabbit is the instantiation of that ideological mode of being into an organized, well, I don't want to just call it a society, into an aspect of an organized community. So let's say like the film industry can be, right? So that idea that reciprocal nature can be based on just that, you can take into the nastier aspects of Hollywood, right? And so you could say Boss Rabbit is Hollywood. I think that's a good analogy, and why you had mentioned the Starlets, because he is the societal thing. Like Hollywood is the piece of our society that we have allowed to become that.
Well, I also want to mention that this is what happens when someone wields the power of oppression, but knows that they shouldn't. There's a reason why the sunglasses, like I said, that's the willful blindness, right?
Right.
And we're going to see later on how weak of character Boss Rabbit is, and why, in order to use this, really needs to have the glasses on. But I think you're right in the most of the analysis. I just wanted to add that.
The glasses.
Yeah.
So but I think that's my interpretation of why it is that even rejecting it, Bulma is turned into this. It's like she has already primed herself that if she comes into contact with it at all, that this is going to be the inevitability. She has not fortified herself in character enough to resist it.
Right, and it's significant she's the only one turned into a carrot.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, we'll see, I think, in the next slide or two, that there are ways to combat something like that.
Well, we're definitely going to see that in the episode. We got to see this resolution. But right.
Well, that way specifically being something very well established.
Wielding that, let's say, power in a duplicitous way, willfully blind to your own, let's say part of that unholy trinity, partly blind to your own deceit and resentment, can turn interfacing with that archetype in society for young women is extremely dangerous, because then you'll be consumed. And that's what's being said.
Right, that system that exists now will consume you, and it will.
And it's
not only will it consume you, it will turn
you
you into something to be consumed.
It's not just Hollywood though. I think it's across multiple hierarchies too. And
Hollywood is a good boomer example, I suppose. But I would say across Twitch and OnlyFans and a lot of stuff that happens on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter, OnlyFans, they're Boss Rabbit. Jack Dorsey, you're hearing this? You're Boss Rabbit.
Right. And Bluma is the young woman who, well, they're out in the desert and they want attention and they want validation for sort of the privileges that they have. Mm-hmm. So I would say that they are not equipped morally or in character to resist the Boss Rabbit. Even if they say they don't want to interface with it.
Right, it's about the interface, not necessarily the shaking of the hands wasn't necessarily a respect thing.
No, the shaking of the hand was the contract. It was basically the
interface
presentation of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I think I'm kind of approaching where your analysis.
Mm-hmm. So now Bluma is a carrot, as we see. Goku and Oolong are rightfully freaking out because they haven't come across a power like this before. And I think, again, to reiterate, the power to wield information that you willingly know is wrong, to subject people to be consumed or in a state to be consumed.
Right. Yeah. And wielding that status of oppression to delineate how people are going to
to really specifically narrow it down, right?
Yeah, I mean, trying to bring it down to, because what he is doing to Bulma is he is reducing her to just a thing to be consumed, right? He's decontextualizing her as a character, right? So seeing someone
not
do that,
just that, a thing to be consumed that is also mindless. She's not an animal; she's a vegetable.
Mm-hmm. Right? She is not. She hasn't just been reduced in the hierarchy. I would say she has been reduced to something.
And she's an object again.
She is
right,
objectified.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's all. Those are all things that will happen when interfacing with this oppressor. Let's say oppressive oppressor. Because of what Boss Rabbit represents, and that's what we were saying, that he represents that. Let's say the ideology of the ideology that those oppressed should be the ones in power.
Right, by virtue of oppression.
Mm-hmm. Wielding that knowledge in an unholy way. Willingly, unknowingly.
Wielding the power.
That's the other
that,
thing, though.
Yeah.
It's ignorantly unholy. He has the glasses on. We will see characters later in the series willingly do unholy things.
Right, without the self-reflection that is being avoided currently with the glasses, right? In the same way that Roshi avoids that reflection.
Mm-hmm. And so, Yamcha.
Just a little bit too late.
Just
everyone who touches him gets turned into a carrot.
Finally, we get here. And so what does that mean? Exactly what we've been saying, right? The vegetative state, being reduced to the vegetative state by interfacing with the ideology.
Right. So Yamcha recognizes the danger of it as it's happening. It kind of puts it in a nebulous space for me in my analysis, because it's like I want to say, Yamcha recognizes this, and it's like he's literally saying it as it happens. So,
but at least he does recognize something.
There is a recognition. I think it's a low resolution recognition, something that he innately knows.
But we'll see Yamcha have some low resolution, but correct.
Oh yeah, he is correct.
Yeah.
He's correct to be following the crew right now. He's doing it for nefarious reasons, right? He is on the same path as them technically, right? So his low resolution sort of morality, we're just seeing more on display here. Well, I think this image speaks for itself.
So then, what combats the ideology of the oppressors should rule over everyone else?
I would say the ancestral knowledge that is passed down to you from the spirit of the paternal.
Right. That's what defeats it.
Right.
Notice, Goku himself cannot defeat this enemy.
He can't touch this enemy.
He can't even touch this enemy.
This enemy defeats everything that it touches automatically by its own nature of existence. That is the nature of the wielding oppression as power dichotomy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. When you wield it's a very powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very powerful thing because
which is why everybody flees. They know that they are powerless against it.
Right. And so not even that which brings order from chaos alone can defeat this enemy. And you have to include the ancestral knowledge of we've all been oppressed.
Right. That ancestral knowledge is the suffering of life.
Yes, exactly. That life is suffering, and the oppression doesn't give you the right to exert power over people.
Exactly. And of course, that knowledge, you can find that ancestral knowledge for yourself by learning your damn history.
And that's what I'm saying. If anyone thought this episode was not important, like, you haven't been paying attention.
What I'm saying is that if you find yourself on the internet looking at thoughts a lot, maybe you should read a little bit of history and recontextualize the struggles in your life, and maybe you will have the power pole to fight off this boss rabbit.
Yeah, it's true. And there's lots
because
of
I think we all need to fight
rabbits out there.
I think we all need to fight this in our society right now. That's my stance.
That's Brok's stance.
That's where I think a lot of people feel the same way. They would draw the line and say that this is something that ultimately doesn't lead to a more peaceful status in society. That this is
and
a
we've seen
destabilizing
in this
thing.
instance we see what it leads to. It's a rule by terror, a rule by fear.
It leads to
and
a
if
state
if you would say there's not people afraid in our society today, I don't know what you would say.
Right. Well, I would say there are a lot of people afraid today of the idea of that oppression, and so these two ideas being intertwined in this episode is very apt. I think it's very
serendipitous.
It's pretty current.
Yeah. And so Oolong points this out. Do you want to mention that? Because I think it's significant that Oolong mentions this.
Well, first
Oolong
of all, I would like to point out just how open Oolong's eyes are. Seriously, though, this is a great... I pointed that out earlier. That it was an important moment for Oolong. This is probably even more important, you know.
Right, that's
the
what
recognition
I was
that
to.
that is the thing that can defeat this is like... It is Oolong ascending sort of a tier in his character development.
Yes, exactly. And
I think that's extremely important for
it allows him to rise up above his symptom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gonna decrease. It's gonna like plummet at this point in the story throughout the next couple of episodes for sure. We're gonna see how this character pans out, and it's gonna be good. So,
I fucking love this panel.
See, exactly. You don't care what happens to this carrot. You don't care what happens to this starlet. Like something not.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you're gonna attack me? Well, look what I have power over.
Right, exactly. And also, look at the henchmen. They cower in fear.
Of course, no spines. They are just, you know the people on the internet who come at you and accuse you of being a race that you aren't even classified as, to tell you that you don't understand your own privilege, that they don't know anything about. Those spineless people, I feel like that's who these people are. And they don't have anything to stand on. They're speaking with ideas they have not earned at all. And that's what these people look like to me.
Yo, Gandalf might be watching Dragonball soon.
Oh, yeah. Oolong is putting everything together now. This is great for his character.
Right. And it is. And it's significant that him and Bloom have been center stage in the season. As far as development goes. We're going to see Goku develop more and more. I mean, we've already seen him develop a lot. For anyone that says Dragon Ball doesn't have any development.
Oh, yeah.
So here, it's just a feeble attempt. This is the last intimidation display, which we've already said this is such false malevolence that once it knows its goose is cooked, it just leans on
the morality of other people
Mm-hmm.
and saying that you can't attack me without attacking the people who have embraced
It's
me.
exactly the same, let's say, tactics that are used by those who use oppression as power.
Mm-hmm. It's sort of that straw manning effect as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? Saying like it's the so you're saying in an argument, the sort of taking it and oh man,
Right.
yeah.
I cut
This
that
is
out.
taking the weakest nature of something and saying, if you're going to attack me, you're attacking this thing that I have boiled down to the greatest weakness of
To an
somebody
object,
that,
a tool.
of somebody that you care
Mhm.
about as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that wielding of the victimhood weakens. Well, you'll see what it does here with Goku. Even Goku can't stand up to this. He says, "Oolong, do you have any good ideas?" And Oolong does have an idea for sure. If you look way off to the left, that's Oolong right there.
Okay, so we're passing on this one.
Do you want to pause on this one?
Just briefly to mention that Goku is relying on someone, and we've established that Oolong is older than Goku, right?
It is. Yeah, he is. I think probably about 5 years older than Goku or something, right? I mean, Goku's still pretty young.
I think possibly. Anyways, I think it's important to acknowledge that since Oolong had a good idea, Goku is willing to listen to any more ideas he has in the future. He didn't ask before, Oolong, do you have any good ideas, right?
Right. Well,
Like-
it's Goku knows when to use that openness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he know. Well, Goku can be confident in what he knows too. It's sort of he is transparent to himself, whereas
he
some other
knows-
characters are clearly not.
And he knows he can't put Bluma at risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
So of course, Oolong's idea is, yes, Oolong's idea, of course, is the probably what a lot of people need to realize in some situations, which is that you do not owe your loyalty to those who have oppressed you just on the merits that they are human beings or that they are vulnerable.
Right.
And Oolong has been freed. Now Bulma cannot yell piggy, piggy, piggy at him, and by the time Goku looks over, he is out of there. So he cannot be shamed by her anymore.
Mm-hmm. Because now she's an object.
She has objectified herself to the point that she does not have the power to wield anymore.
Right. Exactly.
So he's gone.
And so
I
he's
just
out of
love
there.
this.
And why would he stick around? That's the thing. For thoughts, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Once you're done with your usefulness, why are they going to stick around? Why would your audience stick around?
Right.
So, point. Double point.
What a reliable friend you had there.
And that's the thing. Their friendship was built on lies.
And manipulation.
Yeah, so I mean it wasn't really going to be stable anyways. Unlike Goku and Bluma's relationship, which was not, it was immediately
I mean, it was built on extreme transparency.
the deception was stamped out quick.
Oh, yeah.
So, just a comment on, and this is not a flaw of Oolong, actually, I don't think. You see, Oolong before, when he's normally cowardly, it's this is a failure of his maybe to rise to the occasion and need of society, but it's not a failure of his personal character or his personal weakness. Because, as you've said, this carrot has wronged him.
Right. He doesn't owe an allegiance. Like, this is not where he wants to be. He didn't make the decisions to bring these guys here.
Mm-hmm. And so they start beating up Goku.
And Goku just has to take it. Because what option do you have in a situation
he can't really
like
be
that?
harmed by this individually, but
Right.
he also can't do
Well, he's a
anything
little
about
bit harmed, you know. He looks a little rough and tumble after this because He's just being dogpiled by these, I would say, virtue signaling people that are just espousing malicious ideas that they have not earned on Goku. And if he were to even respond to them, it would harm somebody that he cares about.
So he refuses.
So he refuses to respond.
Which is a tendency that I would say could be seen in the world now. Some people wouldn't want to confront others, maybe their friends, because they don't want to lose that friendship, let's say.
Right.
And so it is up to our unrealized masculine to step in.
The latent potential masculine still here within Yamcha, who knows that they are the image that they need of the path.
Well, this is more. I wanna relate this to, let's say, the story of the two brothers, Cain and Abel. This is what would happen if, let's say, that the spirit of the adversary instead chose a better mode of being, and that is to accept that these people are good and worth saving, instead of these people are good and therefore they must be destroyed.
Right. This is somebody who has accepted the situation where their sacrifices have not been accepted by the gods. And still is saying, okay, I have to protect the good in this situation.
And he needs to.
For himself, because they represent the path for him.
Well, the path being specifically...
the path to the final Dragon Ball the conquering of the Dragon of Chaos.
Right, and the way by which the unrealized masculine redeems itself.
Which is that path.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
And so, our shape-shifting friend, Puer.
So Yamcha asks Puer to turn into a bird for him and go snatch that carrot.
Right. Because only, let's say, the feminine can fix this problem. Right? Can rescue or, let's say, capture the objectified feminine.
Right. I almost kind of want to... You had pointed out earlier that this episode is an inversion of the myth in some significant ways, and I may be off base in tying these things together, but it almost feels like an inversion of the rescuing of the father from the belly of the whale, this rescuing of the potential feminine from the, not really the belly of, but you could say that she is in the machine.
She might be in the belly of soon.
Right, going to be in the belly of, or is in the process of being consumed by that machine, right? Or that whale, that thing, right? And so he needs to reach out with the empathy that he has to her situation through the latent feminine that he has, right? And it's not just that he needs to physically go rescue her, it's that he needs to understand the situation that she is in to rescue her.
And the only way to interface with that is by using Puer.
Exactly.
Puer. Yeah.
And
that's what I meant.
And incorporating Puer in a way, not permanently, but not to his character, but incorporating in this act. And this is where Yamcha has so much strength, right? Is whenever he's working in tandem with Puer and accomplishing things that he normally wouldn't be able to.
Yes.
And this is definitely a force of good right here. It's just he's using Puer to protect,
Puer here
and save.
Is a bird, soars above, right? Involved in the logos, the feminine logos embodiment, let's say, comes through and can swoop in and get that.
And it's important to say that the feminine logos embodiment is what can rescue the young female from this situation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what rescues you. What would rescue a woman from that?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there it is. right?
This frame was kind of hard to get. This happens really
but
fast.
this, I love the glasses.
But this is a good one.
The design of the glasses were so brilliant because it's almost symbolic of the fact that he didn't even notice, right? Like,
right.
Later on, we'll see real malevolence pays attention.
Oh, yeah.
Real malevolence pays a lot of attention, which is very dangerous. And here you can see with the glasses not even paying attention, right?
Right. It's sort of this surface level ego type thing as well. It's like, I don't need to pay attention because I am, I have total control over
this situation.
Anyone who could possibly touch me,
I'm untouchable.
Sure.
Yeah. That arrogance, right? So, then, once Bluma is rescued, our unrealized masculine is able to not only go through and, let's say, take care of the subordinates of the ideology, but he's also able to be there without fear of
danger to Bulma.
Well, I meant more,
but in a more.
I meant more of without, let's say, any potential female judgment placed upon him. Bluma's a carrot.
Mm-hmm.
She cannot judge at the moment.
Right.
And that's exactly what he fears, is that judgment.
Well, I think that's a part of it. I also think that Bulma's the other half of that coin, too. She's, as always, unconscious right now.
Right, and we see, mindless. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we see the moral strength of Yamcha in his actions here when he's able to defeat
these keyboard warriors.
Sure, these keyboard warriors, exactly.
Just a good couple of panels of these guys getting smacked down.
Eyes open.
Pretty open.
Interacting with someone on the path. Right.
They're getting learned.
They're learning up. Their goggles are very short.
Their goggles are open.
Their goggles are open. That's what we should be prepared for.
So, Yamcha has rescued Goku.
Right. And this is how it should happen. This is, if you are in an adversarial role where you're looking at someone enviously, maybe realize the good in them, and you could potentially save that person metaphorically. But the point being, in this instance, is that Yamcha sees the value of Goku even though he can't articulate it. He sees it and he respects it. He doesn't resent it. Which, as we'll see, there are many other characters that will resent Goku.
Oh, we're going to see it next episode. Just another great panel. He is trying to chase this bird down. And I think that the fact that he can't just kind of is tied up neatly with the ideas that we were saying. That he...
the embodiment of the female logos is untouchable to this kind of malevolence. This kind of faux malevolence.
Well, it's like, you may be a rabbit, and you may be able to jump high, but you're still wearing your sunglasses.
Yeah. Still can't catch.
You're not going to be able to catch this thing, this more pure aspect of femininity. Except.
Bonk. Into a mushroom.
Runs directly into a mushroom.
So, and if we're continuing with the mushroom symbolism, being that of, let's say, an expansion of one's mind, then it's interesting that Puar can't pass this with someone mindless. Let's say it's specifically what stops them, because you can't expand if you're in this state.
Well, in this state, she still physically needs to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And not just by, this extension of Yamcha, but she still needs to be really saved by this whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so the final confrontation between the two happens, and of course, Goku, now that he's been saved by Yamcha, is free to use his power pole and literally saves Bulma with the extension of the power pole from the grasp of, this ideology.
Right, and again, to say about the power pole is that ancestral strength has depths that reach to infinity.
Literally. That it goes on forever. I think we mentioned that before.
And
Yamcha knew. He has already stated himself that is the pole that extends forever. So he knows that by extension, by him rescuing Goku rather than him going after and getting Carrot Bulma, right? He knows that Goku is the means by which he's going to save her.
Yes. Well, both, yeah, exactly. The means and the tools are both in Goku's favor. So he saves Carrot Bulma. And this happens.
So
eyes
pretty open.
What would you say? Yeah, open.
Pretty wide. So what happens here is that Boss Rabbit decides, well, I don't have the carrot anymore, but I can threaten Puar, as Puar is crashed down to the ground from running into this mushroom. But Puar is not a vegetable.
Right. She's still embodying the female logos.
And so Puar says, oh, I can easily
handle this.
Just reflect this back at you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a much better shapeshifter than Oolong is.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, without his sunglasses, Boss Rabbit sees himself. Is not approached, he is confronted with...
But that's it. That's very...
With his own embodiment, with his own actions.
Mm-hmm. And it being turned on you... Let's say cancel culture comes for you too eventually.
Right, you will fear it yourself.
You'll reap what you sow, and you know it's coming, and that's what's happening here.
Right, and so
wide open, baby.
Oh yeah,
he's terrified because he knows the power of what he's done to other people.
Right, he knows the absolute destruction that he could bring upon himself now.
And so Puar closes in.
He is distracted by this, as Puar is just like, I don't think I caught the subtitle now. It's just going, let me touch you, let me touch you, let me touch you, let me touch you. And it's just hilarious.
Important to note as well that Puar doesn't actually have that power.
Oh, of course not. But
it's all an illusion. But just like the faux malevolence that is Boss Rabbit, that is how he must be dealt with, let's say. And so,
right.
Bam, Sam, slam.
Right on top of the head.
Eyes wide open, interacting with the ancestral knowledge, that ancestral paternal spirit.
Right. You could say that upon reflection, you will be confronted by that ancestral spirit. That guilt that you feel whenever you see the nature of your own willful blindness is Goku smacking you in the head with that power pole, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And how you choose to proceed from there is your own choice. You can choose to put the glasses back on, let's say, and ignore it, but not really what happens here.
No. He's given the ultimatum, as naturally happens in this situation. Goku says, change your back. I'll spare your life if you do.
So this is like that power of oppression, taking away your agency, is only going to be able to be given back to you by that agency you've given it to. So sorry, not the agency, the
Entity, you could say.
Yes, the entity that you've given it to. Because once you're under sway of it, no outside force is going to be able to convince you.
It's just like release your grasp.
Yeah. And it has to be released by the system itself, let's say. The hierarchy itself. If you're gripped by a unholy hierarchy. It was kind of faux unholy. Bam, Sam, the magic is undone. The cowl is down. The intimidation is completely gone. And this character is utterly defeated.
Pretty much. Just has to undo what he did and turn Bluma back into a Bluma.
And there she is blooming.
Yep.
She blooming.
You bloomin'? She bloomin'.
She's kind of shocked. Anything else you want to say about this?
No.
Okay.
I would say her eyes are open, but that's about it.
I mean, I don't think her eyes are open in any significant way. She doesn't really know what's happened yet.
Well, just open in the sense that she was a vegetable 1 second ago, and now she's just taking in
Being conscious again.
her status in the world again.
Sure. Yeah.
Goku's telling her Yamcha helped rescue you in your unconsciousness.
Which is what happens when women decide to do that. They need to be rescued by the Logos. And it's actually very interesting because...
Are we going to Sleeping Beauty?
I was going to say Sleeping Beauty
Yeah.
is a similar thing because the fairies embody the feminine Logos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Philip embodies the masculine part of that character, and that is what is happening here. It's setting up the idea of what redeems Yamcha is this character, and what redeems Bluma is Yamcha.
Right, and it's extending that idea into a more modern societal context.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
In a more relatable one that resonates with people even more, I think.
I think it's more universal.
Yeah.
And so, I forgot what I was going to say.
And of course, she wasn't there again. I think this is the third or fourth time now
That she's been unconscious.
that she's just been unconscious while Yamcha does punch in.
But now, and that's the last time. Let me note, that's the last time she goes unconscious around him, right?
Well, there's another frame here too, in that the reason that he's not around this time and that she's not seeing him is because he is choosing to hide himself from her in this next panel.
Well, while that is true, what I'm saying is there's not another. I don't think that in the future there's another instance of this unconsciousness rescuing, because now at this point, Yamcha has taken the steps that he can confront consciously the feminine that he needs to. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point that out.
But yeah,
Looking for him, all that good stuff. Goku's there, just so happy.
Yamcha, of course, still says he would pass out if he got near her.
He would rather be unconscious than face the judgment of the female.
Right. Especially after he has tussled with Goku and paid the physical price for it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I don't even think she's seen him since then.
Right.
Yeah.
So he, in sort of a noble sense, he is not rescuing her and then claiming the status from it. He is...
Well, that's because he wasn't aiming at that to begin with.
Right. He's this is still the means by which he approaches this.
It's still the means by which he can better himself.
Yeah.
Right.
This challenge.
Yeah. So, here. Hey. This is funny.
It's a kind of funny interplay because Oolong is ashamed and comes back and Bulma reiterating what was said to her as a carrot. That Oolong was cowardly in running away and leaving his friends behind. And the fact that Oolong comes back and that he's here at all is establishing his friendship to the
This
party.
is when they were actually become friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
he didn't have to come back this time. He willfully came back and was apologetic, essentially. I mean, I don't know if he said, I'm sorry. He said, I'm sorry in the Oolong way, where he's like, whenever she's angry at him, he's like, oh, they should have just left you as a carrot.
Yeah. In the Oolong way.
In his Oolong way.
But yeah, I mean, he does come back, and he does. Instead of running away, being a rocket ship like he was the first time we saw him,
Mm-hmm.
now we see him being able to face not only the judgment of women, which he wasn't able to do before, and the acceptance of his identity within the dragon team.
Yeah. As a part of it, you know, as a functional part of it anyway, instead of someone that needs to be dragged along
Hell yeah.
against his will.
And so then we see what happens to Boss Rabbit.
So Boss Rabbit, just here behind Goku, is tied up with his henchmen, and Goku takes out the power pole and just says, extend a lot.
Now, before we get to where they go, we want to just reiterate a little bit that this, like we said, the depths of the ancestral strength you can rely on is limitless. If you allow yourself to wield it, let's say in a forthright way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so,
If you can respect it.
extend a lot, and let's see where they go. Is that right? Is that the next one?
Probably. So they are
And so up they go.
extending a lot.
Yes. And I think it's significant that they're going up.
I think it's really significant considering this isn't going to be the only time we see the power pole used in this way.
Right. In fact, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it is significant they're going up. Goku is trying to help them in this instance.
Yeah.
By taking them to a higher plane of existence, let's say, to a celestial even.
I did want to catch this frame as they watch this happen in just total shock. Bulma turns to this guy, and she doesn't say this in English, but in the Japanese, she just says, now do you realize how awesome we are?
Right.
Which Bulma did literally nothing except turn into a carrot.
The claim to that by proxy, she's continuing her ways even after
She's
that. She's still being Bluma.
Still being Bluma. Maybe not in the exact same ways. She's
But the
ultimately
the
has learned a
vanity
bit
is
of a
still
lesson,
there, right? But look at Oolong's fascination and awe in the face of the ancestral strength being pushed to its limits, because we've never seen it be extend this far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Oolong has pointed out to Goku, like, you know, you can defeat this with your power pole.
He understood the value of it, but he didn't know the extent
and
of how
so
powerful
now he's seeing
it
the
was.
payoff of it.
Yeah.
In that, he's like, I didn't realize
How right I was.
that I was recognizing something this innately powerful.
Right.
So Goku here says rabbits belong on the moon, of course, because they're like, where did you take them?
Of course, that's where they belong.
They belong on the moon. What do you think?
And why
about
do they belong on the moon?
Rabbits? I guess we have to talk about the moon as a symbol on a more archetypal level, right? So
Yes.
I associate the moon, generally first and foremost, as a subconscious sort of half of, you could consider the sun and moon the conscious and unconscious aspects of the mind, whereas like enlightenment and then like the latent unconscious mind. And so my original take probably is going to tie that into taking that and putting it somewhere to where it is forced to confront its underlying nature. Basically saying, go do work on the moon is like go into that self-introspection into like what is motivating you and put work in. That's sort of how I take it on a psychological level.
Interesting. I was more seeing it as, what is the moon but a faux sun, right? You're not able to even understand enlightenment yet. You need to start smaller on something else, and particularly their activity there I think is important. But as far as the location itself, I would say it's partially because we had already established that it's somewhat Boss Rabbit himself is somewhat of a feminine entity. The moon is associated with femininity, chaos, right? In that kind of same vein, rebirth. Now, think about what they were doing. This is in a way Goku's answer to the antidote to order. You have too much of a rigid hierarchical structure of oppression. Let's say what is it? The oppressive stack, progressive stack, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
This is kind of Goku's answer to that, because how have they've been ruling through this, right?
Right.
And it's been tyrannical. And so how do you solve order? By introducing chaos. Also, the fact that the moon's enlightenment is let's say a fraud in itself is important to mention because of how they are fraudulent malevolence. There's a lot of levels to the moon, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I can definitely see that. I can see. Well, it's also kind of like, let's go back to what I was saying about the pink halo in the fan behind his head, right? And sort of establishing him, Boss Rabbit, as this sort of spiritual strength inherent in the femininity, right? And it's like thinking of the moon as being the feminine aspect to the masculine sun. It's like taking this spiritual feminine essence and taking it home almost,
right,
to its place
where it needs
in the celestial, or you could say like on the cosmologic level,
where it needs to exist first, before it can even attempt to achieve enlightenment,
and then putting it to work there as well.
Well, we'll talk about too what they're actually making. So they're making marshmallows.
Marshmallow rabbits.
Right.
For the children.
Now, why are they making marshmallow rabbits, Brock?
They are creating something for people to consume rather than turning people into something to be consumed. Okay. So that's the first aspect of it that I want to point out.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they are rabbits as something... They are basically confectionery rabbits, or like candy rabbits. I think of like that as sort of a treat for kids. So taking this, if I'm going to use my own analogy and say that this is the spirit, this feminine spirit, being put to work to create this thing to be digested for children on the moon.
Trying to say women belong in the kitchen? To feed children on the moon?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm kind of thinking of it as more like this is the more proper place for this feminine strength, is to be creating something that people can benefit from rather than taking away or tyrannizing. Now, I'm not to say that women belong in the kitchen, but that this is sort of like, this is how this spirit can create good.
Well, I think there's a level to it that I would want to add. I'm not sure about the end product, let's say, because this almost is like remedial work, right? Like redeeming work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the reason they're rabbits, and in particular, it looks like they're going to be all white rabbits, right, is to reinduce the idea of the prey animal to these, let's say, maybe not to say to put them in their place, but for them to reorganize their frame to include rabbits as they are.
Well, to put the rabbits back where they belong.
That's
in society.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Yes.
No, it makes more sense that way too.
Yeah. To put them back where they belong in society. Not saying that they're like.
Well, the rabbits representing the place that a white rabbit is sort of like this pure symbol, right? So it's like the place that this pure femininity belongs in society as something that's, well, not something just to be consumed, but it is not something. It's clearly not something to tyrannize people with. Right.
And it's not as base as a carrot, right? It's something with form. It's been formed out of the chaos, out of the feminine chaos, into something.
It's an idea being given back out, sort of like think of the food as knowledge. Like this is the knowledge of where the rabbit belongs in sort of the machinations of a functioning hierarchical society.
Well, not just. I think you got to extrapolate it further than just a rabbit. I'm saying those on the lower rungs, or maybe and I don't like of the food chain. I mean, like animals, right? Hold on. So rabbits are prey animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's many of them, and if you put them on the hierarchy, right, rabbits are low on the hierarchy. This is an instantiation of those who get power that are low on the hierarchy and abuse it. How you treat that is, once again, reducing yourself to the low end of the hierarchy, manual labor, to reintroduce the ideas that the hierarchy has instantiated to begin with. I think that's exactly what's being told.
Yeah. Well, you had also mentioned the reborn sort of aspect, and so it's like the concept that this is the labor of what Boss Rabbit represents, to sort of be reborn as this pure distilled representation back into society.
Right. I think, is that the last one?
Well, that's the last frame from this episode.
Oh,
because
okay.
this is exactly where it ends, actually. It
Right.
just kind of gives us a hard cut end. It's kind of a weird pacing for it, but
Do we want to surmise? I think we just surmised Boss Rabbit. Yamcha in this episode we've talked about. Bluma we've talked about. How she even ends in this, not the same spot, but she ends with the same vanity that she began with. The vanity hasn't been reduced.
right. We have to get past that for her.
Yeah.
She's not grown past that, but she has had a brush with her potential role in society.
Yeah.
She stays the way that she has been, and so she's grown a bit in this episode, but I think that this is a major growth episode for both Oolong and Yamcha.
And we've talked about
her.
Oolong and Puar and Goku. We've talked about pretty much everyone.
Yeah, I think this episode flows really well.
It does. Any last words on it? I think it does flow really well. I think it's a fun little episode to break up the two-parter that we saw last time and what's coming next, which is going to be like a three-parter. Yeah. So it does a really good job in breaking up the pacing. It's funny. Toriyama knows how to do the designs, let me tell you. These designs are amazing, and they're so subconsciously significant. The fascistic attire I never, as a kid, would have caught on to, let's say.
Yeah.
And I think that it's very substantial to say that those that consider this filler, I think, would be wrong in their assessment.
Yeah, I don't think that... I mean, the only way that you could consider this filler is if you don't know what's going on with all of the fun, wacky stuff that's happening around the fights, which is the Oolong candy situation and like why Puar is important as a character, so on and so forth. Like, if you don't know any of that, this episode is not going to have any context for you because we don't see why it matters at all to any of them.
Your glasses will be on. Your eyes will not be open.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to be like that. So, and that's just not trying to take a jab at anyone in the community, but I really don't like hearing that this show's just about powering up and fighting.
And then filler.
Oh, God. Yeah, I know. That assessment has gotten so stale and repugnant to me.
Well, it's just too easy to tear something down. It's too easy to say, like, there's nothing here. Look how much doesn't matter. So,
Exactly.
Well, maybe you should focus on what matters.
Right. Either nothing matters or everything matters. You have to care about it. I think that everything matters.
Yeah.
Because if you think that nothing matters, or let's say one thing doesn't matter, it's not important for me to maintain my ancestral connection to the patriarchal spirit, Bluma style, let's say. If that's the way you think, then you're going to lose. You not only lose respect for it, but you lose the actual ability to do it entirely.
And then you lose the ability to think.
Yeah, and that's where it leads you.
To a vegetative state.
And so next episode, we are going to be talking about the wide open eyes of Yamcha.
I would say those eyes are pretty open.
He is going to have to face, and that's what I was exactly right. This is the first time they interact where she is conscious.
Now, I wanted to point that out too, because the depth of this show is really interesting to me. The fact that so much time has gone by that Yamcha and Bulma can't occupy the same space. It's like, if you want to look at characters as extensions of other characters, it's almost like Yamcha and Bulma are extensions of Goku. They're like the latent potential for insufficiencies in him that he has the opportunity not to be like. So they're the mirror held up to Goku to show what he is not on his both masculine and feminine side. In the same way that we see that feminine side of Yamcha, or, we see Oolong and his masculine sort of
I don't want to distill the
relationship with
characters
Bulma.
down to just that, but I mean, there is a analysis where you can include those ideas for sure.
Yeah, well, it's just multifaceted in that way, right? And so it's really great because there's been so much time now, because we're coming up on episode 10. There's been a lot of time for each of them to develop independent of the other one, right? And overcome their own place in the hierarchy without necessarily coming together to challenge each other's ideas, or coming together to be integrated as more salient idea of ultimately what we're trying to figure out with the show is what's good, right? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be an integration of the things that Bulma's learning and the things that Yamcha is learning. So I just think it's pretty artful the way that this first season has played around with keeping them from integrating until they were ready.
Yeah, but it's purposeful.
Definitely purposeful.
That's the thing. Just because Toriyama doesn't say like, "Oh, I did this on purpose," that doesn't mean that he didn't do it on purpose.
Oh, Toriyama had to do some stuff on purpose. He didn't just accidentally
doesn't come out like
make
this.
the franchise that's resonated with maybe the most people in the world as far as franchises go.
I mean, think about it. Yeah, there are countries that don't like Star Wars, cultures that don't like Star Wars. Doesn't resonate with them, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
This is in like every language, all across the world.
Yeah, it just seems to resonate with everybody. You find I challenge you to go on YouTube and find a video that's a song from Dragon Ball, or a cover of a song from Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, and see how many different languages are in the comment section. Because on average, I'm seeing about 3.
Yeah.
Every one of them. Because
Yes.
it's just it's people from all over the world coming together and just saying, this is great. And they don't even know why they think it's so great.
And it's because it's holy art. It's something that has mythological meaning to it, and therefore is good.
Good in a sort of purifying way.
Well, good
that
as in
you can reflect on it and take something away instead of.
Well, I mean, good as in on the first day God spoke, right, and said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And it was good.
And it was good.
And it was good. That's it. Because this show is let's say formulating a mode of being by which you can navigate the world, right? By being able to sort out things through order and making things through chaos and using that to help you, right? Which is divine. Which is why it is good. The show is divine.
Literally.
Literally divine. And so, when we get to the next episode, we're going to see the interface. I think the next episode is called The Dragon Balls Are Stolen. Anything else you want to say?
Oh, nothing else to say without spoiling where we're going to be going on the next episode. But the Dragon Balls are stolen in the next one. Spoiler.
Spoiler. I think this time, to end the stream, I have to do something else. Right? Okay. Well, I guess we'll do a little outro here. If you liked what you heard, you liked our analysis, or you want to interact with it, please leave a comment. You can always type in the chat. I think from now on, I'm going to abstain from saying smash the like button. Even ironically, I find it cringe.
Yeah, it just kind of hurts.
It hurts, yeah. Physically, I'm dying.
Yeah. So, there is no obligation to like this. Regardless.
If you don't like it, hit the dislike button. If you didn't like it. But if you did like it, please
do what you want to do.
Please just come watch the next episode. Maybe you'll find you like that one too.
Yeah, or
you can always
tell
engage
us something we don't know
in the comments, right? You can always engage in the comments, anything like that. We're always down to hear some feedback. If you think we're completely wrong, let us know that as well. But I don't think these ideas are very much discussed in the community. I think that is something that we are here to solve. Whether we get popular or not doesn't really matter. We are trying in our own way to be good, let's say.
Yeah, hopefully we can make this something that's capital G good.
That's good. We just want to make something that's good. And that's our goal. And that's how we'll sign out this time. This was Get the Mic, episode 9. The Boss Rabbit Special Technique. I'm your host on the left, Owl.
I'm your host on the right, Brok.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and good night.